Hi everyone! How are y'all today? I hope y'all are hungry. Hungry for history! So let's jump right into it, guys. We're gonna learn about the authors of the Progressive Era. The Progressive Era was a period that lasted from 1901 to 1918. Pretty much the start of the Teddy Roosevelt presidency to the end of the Woodrow Wilson presidency. It was a time when those in government were actively trying to solve the problems caused by industrialization, immigration, gender inequalities, corporate powers, and monopolies. There are all sorts of reforms going on at the time. You got state reform, health reform, city reform, education reform, all these reforms that were going on. People relied on pragmatism to solve everyday social problems, and many pragmatists wrote books and other pieces of literature. So we're going to talk about a few of them today. Number 1. Theory of the Leisure Class by Thorstein Veblen. Veblen suggested that in order for there to be maximum organization and efficiency, then the government would have to be controlled by those who are top-notch experts in their field, or technicians or engineers. He's basically saying that only the best of the best should rule this country. Number 2. Pragmatism by William James. James believed that in order for society to make progress, then people would have to apply the knowledge they've received from scientific inquiry to their everyday problems. It's basically using a scientific approach to solve everyday problems. Remember that this is just the age of problem solving. Number 3. How the Other Half Lives by Jacob Riis. Jacob Riis was an immigrant from Denmark. Soon after he came to America, he witnessed the hardships of the poor who lived in the cities. It's like Slumdog Millionaire, only minus the millionaire part. Yeah, these slums were bad. I mean, with a heavy population and little sanitation and everybody's in poverty, it's just a mess out in these slums. Trash is on the street, water is polluted, people are getting TB and diarrhea. It's terrible. People are dying left and right, and it's just an absolute nightmare in these places. So in The Other Half Lives, Jacob Riis exposes slum life to the eyes of the nation, and he devotes his entire career to getting rid of these slums. He also encouraged the immigrants to better themselves by becoming more disciplined and getting rid of the old customs they brought with them from their old countries that would make their transition into American life harder. Number 4. Democracy in Education by John Dewey. Okay, just so you know, classrooms are a dictatorship. The students sit down and shut up, on occasion, and they do the will of the teacher, who holds all the power. So in Democracy in Education, John Dewey says, "Teachers, now y'all listen here to me. Your students need to become more prosperous in the classroom. And the only way they'll become prosperous is if you allow them more power in the classroom, and more flexibility, and less memorization in the classroom. That is the only way they will truly be successful and prosperous in the classroom." Number 5. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. In the jungle, the mighty jungle, the lion sleeps tonight. Upton Sinclair was a socialist, and he even promoted socialism at the end of his book. By the way, if you are sickened by the thought of rotten meat, then you probably don't want to read The Jungle. In the book The Jungle, Upton Sinclair exposed the squalor of the meatpacking industry in Chicago and exposed the abuse of the workers who worked there. The Jungle led to the FDA and other meat inspection associations. Number 6. McClure's and Collier's magazines. So prostitution, child labor, and pollution ran rampant during this time, especially within the cities. So these magazines helped expose the realities of city life to the rest of the nation, particularly to the federal government. Number 7. The Octopus by Frank Norris. Wheat growers in California used the railroads to get their wheat to the market. However, railroad owners would try some sneaky tricks to increase their profits, like jacking up railroad rates, or being dishonest, or even bribing the farmer. So there was always this struggle between California wheat growers and owners of the railroads. They always came at each other a lot. And that's what Frank Norris shows us in his book, The Octopus. Number 8. The History of Standard Oil by Ida Tarbell. Ida Tarbell's daddy owned a well-to-do business until Rockefeller stepped into the picture, and soon after, Ida's father went out of business. Let's say Mr. John Rockefeller set up his oil business right across the street from Mr. Tarbell's business. Let's say the price of oil at Mr. Tarbell's business was around 25 cents. Taking notice of that, Mr. Rockefeller would have his business drop its price down to 10 cents. So if you want to buy some gas today, to which business would you go? And that is exactly how Mr. Tarbell was driven out of business. It's probably safe to say that Ida wasn't too fond of Rockefeller. So I assume her writing the history of Standard Oil went a little something like this. Curse that terrible Rockefeller with his monopoly, controlling all the oil and putting my dad out of business! Number 9. Up from Slavery by Booker T. Washington. Up from Slavery is Booker T. Washington's autobiography. In it, he describes his journey from slavery to a life of comfort. It's not a rags to riches story, but more like a rags to comfort story. Number 10. Souls of Black Folk by W.E.B. Du Bois. Okay, to start off with, white Southerners hated W.E.B. Du Bois. In Souls of Black Folk, W.E.B. Du Bois pushed heavily for African Americans to get a full university education and to better themselves by picking up professions. Ain't no Negro got no business talking about better himself. He better just sit himself down and stay out of the way. W.E.B. Du Bois pushed heavily for civil rights and always advocated black empowerment. So that's all I have for today, guys. I hope you learned something, and if you did, good job. So have a nice day, and I hope to see you again soon. Peace!